I want to experience that feeling of what it's like to recover just like that and to train hard or whatever you want to call it. It's all subjective. But I just kind of had that urge of I want that feeling of what it feels like to be able to take a performance enhancing drug and to see the impact on, I think mainly it's a big recovery thing that allows you to train at a certain level. And just to, kind of was like, I would never do it. I've never done it, but I did have that feeling that I wanted to just get that feeling and just say, I'm not going to compete. I'm just going to do it within training and I won't do any competition. I just want to see what it does.
And welcome back once again to the Endurance Hour Podcast, episode 395. Back alongside Kona coach Wendy Mader, Dave Erickson here. Thank you so much for listening this week. We do have a number of questions from our followers, athletes, and listeners. But there's also this other topic that came up that I was looking into. I thought this might be interesting to share our perspective on. An athlete who accepted a 3-year ban in triathlon for taking an illegal substance, EPO, which is endurance helping performance enhancing drug, probably more well known in the cycling world. So he was caught, tested positive for this out of competition in February of this year. He went on. He later has admitted to doing this. He talked about, his name is Colin Chartier. He admitted to doing this, said when he started doing it, why he started doing it. And, I'm thinking about this topic, and unfortunately, this might be the tip of the iceberg. It's not the first time a professional triathlete or a triathlete has been caught or admitted to doing something illegal outside the lines to get an advantage. This is in the professional world, so that's one element of it because there's a lot of money tied to that. But it is something I know that happens in the amateur world. This is a type A personality sport, Wendy, and there's some very competitive people in it. And by demographics, it's a sport where the higher end income earner participates because it is an expensive sport when it comes to bicycles that are thousands of dollars, when it's going through running shoes, that are a couple $100 a piece, or pairs. Does it shock you?
It doesn't surprise me he got caught. It surprises me that he used something like EPO, because to me, that seems an old school performance enhancing illegal substance to use, because there's so many other substances that athletes can use that are legal as well as not legal. So for him to do it, I just reading other blogs and listening to other podcasts, I have other thoughts on my mind just based on what other people said. It's not surprising that he got caught. I hope, that World Triathlon Corporation, the USA Triathlon Federation, who tests athletes, do more testing, because I think it's used, not necessarily EPO, but I think illegal performance enhancing drugs are used more than the number of athletes that actually get caught. And in his case, the fact that he said, well, I used it in the off season and then I stopped using it before these certain events. It doesn't matter. You're using a substance to get you stronger in the off season. That's going to carry over into the rest of the season. So I think they need to do more testing on both amateurs and professionals. And I think there's just a lot of amateurs out there that use products that to enhance their performance that are legal. One such product is CBD oil or the like, that could be tainted with an illegal substance. So there could be athletes out there that don't even know that they have tainted supply of something that's legal to enhance their performance. So I think it's definitely something that we all need to be aware of, and the products we're taking. Someone like me, I rely on my own training strength that I get from that, and my own recovery techniques that are, basically a clean diet and sleep. and I stay away from other products out there because again, it could be tainted and I might not be know that I'm taking something that's illegal.
It's a very competitive sport, and the egos and the effort that goes into it. It's mano a mano. It's you're going out there, you're going toe to toe with somebody, and I'm not surprised. And I think there are probably more people who are doing it, but I don't know if it matters at the amateur level. I mean, in the big picture, because
I think it
if you
does.
people are in it for a little while, you think it matters what?
I think it matters at the amateur level because I'm an elite amateur triathlete who, used to chase the Kona spot. And if I found
Mhm.
out that I missed a spot by one or two, and that's happened to me numerous times, and the athletes who beat me were using something illegal, then that bothers me a lot because it's really an expensive sport. And one reason I shy away from it now is I don't want to invest all this money to get to Kona. Getting to Kona is very expensive getting there, and then once you're there, it's extremely expensive. And I used to tell people, it's all in the engine. And now I say, people are using performance-based products to enhance their performance, whether it's legal or not, to make their engine stronger and more resilient. And it just
Mhm.
adds to more investment. And again, I'm making the choice to not want to have to invest in the latest and greatest wheels every year or the more expensive helmets or glasses or clothing that's more aerodynamic because that's not why I do the sport. I do it more for my own personal accomplishments to be better than I was every year as I get older. And so I think yeah.
But it is also a very small percentage that it really matters for. If you're talking about, if you
Oh
say the
yeah.
top 10 in any
Yeah.
age group,
Uh-huh.
and that's just a very small percentage of the field.
It
And
is.
yes, you know, I get it. I get all the time. I, I think I won yesterday, and I did a ride last week for the first time in months. And I was thinking about my Ironman Arizona performance last year in November and how all those hours of time, and I was thinking about how I got my run pace down to a very reasonable, high efficiency run pace. And I was doing great. I was getting close to averaging an 8-minute pace over 50, 20 miles. Like, this is awesome. And yet it was all derailed from a terrible swim based on conditions. Let me tell you that for the most part,
Uh-huh.
conditions. And the whole race after that was shot in terms of my personal goals
Hmm.
and expectations and overall performance. It's like, but all that time, I mean, hours and hours every week looking forward to this one day, this one shot, and
Hmm.
it's gone. So I understand the time investment and money investment, like someone like you who's at a high level that goes, I put all this time and money in. I did it cleanly. I did the right way. I got my sleep. I got my recovery. And then Mrs. Joe Schmo took some enhancing drugs and beat me by a minute and a half, whatever it is. Either way, she's ahead of me, gets the slot. And that was my goal. What happened to all that effort? There's no consolation. There's no, atta girl, here's a ribbon. No, no, it doesn't. It's over. I understand that for you. But I think if someone says, oh, drugs in the sport, oh, I can't afford that. I don't care. I'm participating. This is a bucket list. This is something I'm doing with my friends. This is what I do 10 hours a week, and that's it because I have a life. Talk a very small percentage of people who it really matters to. And the rest of us, the 99.5% of us, it doesn't matter. But
Right.
I don't know if anything's going to change because this is such a very niche. I don't know. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised he got caught because he gets maybe he's a rookie at doing doing EPO. Maybe he's like, oh, how do I avoid getting tested for this? No, there's other athletes, other sports have doctors. I mean, he says he's by himself, and he has some pretty good results, and he did pretty well in the heat, and then didn't do so well in Kona, and says, I need to step it up a notch. What do I have to do? And he's a very competitive, high level athlete. He went that way, made a mistake, made a mistake. He made a decision, and now he accepts the ban, and then he says, I'm done in the sport. So he's out. I don't know if it's going to impact a lot of people. If it's in our 24-hour news cycle, it's over. It got or ran about it. But in the triathlon circles, I think it's a short memory. People are in and out.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where half the professional names when I look at a list today. I see a few names I recognize from 5-7 years ago. I go, oh, cool, they did well, but I don't know anybody else because I'm in and out of certain aspects of the sport.
Yeah, I think definitely a short memory because when I heard about it, I got the triathlon magazine news in my inbox. I listened to other podcasts who were talking about it, and I had forgotten about it and what had happened a couple weeks ago. So it's definitely not going to implode for much longer, if any.
And in the end, I think people won't care because you didn't do anything to me. You didn't hurt me. You just did it for yourself. It's about how fast did I swim, bike, and run. Am I really comparing myself to you? I should be comparing myself to me and what I did before, because that's what it's all about, right? Did I get better today than I was yesterday? Did I get better this today than I did last month? That's what really matters. And if someone's willing to do that, that's choice.
Right. Choice. So for me, if I'm just going out to do a race with the only goal of I trained for it, I want to enjoy it, I'm going to go through the motions and nothing else matters, placement doesn't matter, and I found out that someone who placed higher than me was using EPO, I wouldn't care because my goal wasn't to beat them anyways. My goal wasn't to get a certain placing. So I'd be over it. I'd be like, fine, they're only hurting themselves. And that's sad. That's sad that they had to go, that they felt that much pressure to have to go to extremes to use a performance enhancing drug, because again, the long-term effects of those can't be good either. I mean, people who put those substances in their bodies end up possibly in the future getting cancer because of that drug that they used. And so again, they're only hurting themselves.
It's a short window of success that a person can have too. That people are born with a certain genetic makeup, right? Certain people can go longer, harder. Some people have a bigger frame. Some people have a petite frame. Some people don't pack on muscles, or you can't see the muscles. For lack of a better, soft body versus a muscular person, and you could have similar results. Or one, he's like, that doesn't make sense. Why is that person awesome? That person's not. Unfortunately, it's the cards that were dealt. I know in the world of male triathletes or men in general, when it comes to this testosterone levels, we all goes down as we get older, and we don't have the endurance, the strength, the muscle mass, or all that stuff. And what happens if a guy has a certain level and he's just stuck there, or he's not where, let's say 2 40-year-olds, I'll go 40, I guess. One has a level that's feels like a 30-year-old, and the other guy has a level that's a 50-year-old, but they're both 40. I mean, I know it's a natural genetic advantage that they had no control over, but what happens if they both had a 40-year-old level because one was able to raise it? Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is it fair for a 40-year-old to say, let me get my levels to a 40-year-old level so I can be so this is a fair field, versus because the cards I was dealt gave me a 50-year-old's levels. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a really good point, because I remember talking to a friend years ago, and she was taking testosterone for a certain ailment.
She was?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Her levels were low, and she was taking it. I don't remember if she had some sort of ailment, but anyways, again, an elite athlete taking testosterone just to get her to that even level of her gender and age group. So she wasn't going beyond, she wasn't overdoing it as a performance enhancer because of her genetics were normally low. And so now she was even. And at the same time, in my mind, it could have been helping her because she was low and now she's higher. But at least she was in the legal limit of females with testosterone levels. That's all I know. So just to your point about an even playing field.
I heard about this more than 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
where, and obviously I'm not going to name any names. I heard through a friend that somebody in my local community, I only heard about it once.
Uh-huh.
And then there was rumors of a couple other people, but um, it sounded pretty convincing based on the source of the person who told me that this other male triathlete was taking something he shouldn't. And I know who it was. And I go, huh, I know he's a top finisher, but he also, I mean, clearly he's fit because I see him always, I've never
Mm-hmm.
known otherwise to be a top finisher. And then just always just kept in the back of my mind and pay attention to his results and his fitness. And he's a full-time professional. I know that. And I know that he has a full-time job. It's high level, but also he also has a high income level. And then he would do well. And then
Uh-huh.
he would qualify for the world championships. Usually the same point, and, but I definitely know he had been at the 70.3 level. I mean, it's kind of hard to be a full-time professional and be able to compete at the Ironman distance level competitively at his age. And I think he was older than me. He is older than me. I don't know by how many years, but not 5 years, but definitely older than me. And it's like, well, maybe possible. I mean, the source told me he did this, and I thought about it, and I'm not going to tell anybody. It's none of my business. It's not my business to like rat him out or I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. But it was like a piece of information, like really, this guy, and nothing wrong with him personality wise. I mean, he's a very nice person, and it's like I'm not judging him for that. It's just a piece of information. It's, huh? And that's just one person that I was. All right, I'm not surprised, and I'm okay with it because I'm not at that level. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care. It's not impacting me. I understand what it means to the elite, but I'm not naive. And if the amateurs are doing it based on their ability, resources wise, to afford it, there's a lot of high level amateurs out there. And that competitive nature of doing well, the bragging rights, the
Mm-hmm.
gear, the swag, I went here, and bragging rights within a very small niche community that they're out there. And this is a professional who got caught, and I'm glad he admitted it for some reason. It's like it takes a little bit of sting out of it for me that he says, I did it. Here's why I did it. Here's when I did it.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, okay, I'm glad he's leaving the sport because him coming back, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Someone comes back, they're always going to have that reputation of, oh, he's a doper, you know?
Yep.
Any inklings in your world, in your circle, whether they're rumors? I mean, I know you've been on high level teams as a triathlete, uh, been around other athletes. Have you ever had amateurs?
No.
No.
No, but
Never
I
asked
just
about it?
I don't pay attention to that.
Hmm.
Like you had mentioned, I don't really know the pro circuit like you had mentioned. You don't really know the pro names right now. Either do I.
Hmm.
Because and I never have. I've never had this top level pro that I follow on Strava or I follow their blog or vlog. It's like I've never been into having that person who's at the professional level of triathlete. Um, there's some of my favorites, but that's about it. I don't spend a lot of time paying attention to them. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about other amateur athletes that may be doping unless I hear that someone in their circle is. Then I think, well, if that person's boyfriend was doping, I wonder if they are too. But that's kind of been
Mm.
what's happened to me in the past, with someone a well-known amateur triathlete in his 50s tested positive, and I knew his circle, and so I wondered, but I didn't
Hmm.
wonder enough to want to get into it, to want to say anything or investigate or anything like that. Because again, that's just not why it doesn't, I don't care. If they're doing it, they're going to get caught. If they're going to get caught, they're going to have dramatic, maybe long-term effects in their future. let them deal with that themselves.
Do you, a woman, pro level or even at high level, and go, she's seems better than she should be, or how does she achieve those results? How can she go that hard? Because you've performed and have had high finishes and done really well, and you know what it took to get where you are. Do you go like, man, she is just genetically gifted. She works harder than I do. It's her job, blah, 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 whatever it may be going. But is there a doubt? Do you look back without saying names like, I wonder if she did something because I know her personality, or she seems like she would be the type of person that would cross the line.
No,
Hmm.
going back to your point, I've had success at the World Championships being the overall winner in 2008, and I knew I was legal. Like I trained hard. I had the lifestyle. There were a lot of things that happened to me that year that I trained like a professional. I recovered like a professional, and the results showed. So I know what it takes, and I know other people can do it. And at the same time, my success in 2008, that was 16 years ago. So much has changed with those performance enhancing products that are legal that I think people are investing in, and it's legal. So the more power to them. If they have the energy and the time and the money to want to be using these products, great. They're going to be at a higher level on top of the training, because ultimately I'm still a believer you still have to put the time and the effort and the purposeful and smart training plan together, and these products will get you to that next level. But no, I've never really had someone in my age group or close to it in my circle that I've ever suspected of doing anything illegal.
What about any former teammates? Any suspicions, without naming names, of course?
No. No, I'm going through the list.
Hmm.
No, I haven't. And again, it could just be I've always been that naive person that until I see something or hear something, I'm not going to suspect anything on my own unless someone said, "Hey, what do you think about this because of this?" And then I'll be like, "Oh, you have a good point. I see where you're going with this, maybe." And then I get curious about it, but no.
But you
Have
don't
you?
seem like you. To me, you seem like you don't care enough to, like, I mean, that's their business.
Yeah.
I
For the most part.
I've always been a very curious person, which got me into doing TV news as a reporter and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm just very inquisitive, and so I see things, and I like to ask questions. I want to know why. I want to know how. In any kind of almost topic, because I like to go a little bit deeper than just one or two questions sometimes. And so I'm not. I'm yeah. I see it, and I wonder, I wonder based on the pressures that an athlete may have, sponsors, results, livelihood, and how hard that must be for some people uh, in the sport that they're shut like.
Well,
And this is not a career that can last very long at a high level.
right. And again, like when I hear something like, "Oh, that professional triathlete is under all this pressure because of sponsors," coming from someone who back in, the mid 90s when I started triathlon, I started in 92. And by like 95, I wanted to be professional. I moved to Colorado. I was around the Olympic Training Center. I was an elite very early on because my age group was so small. I wanted to be a professional triathlete and I never made it. And then there are times in my life where I could have been, but I chose not to. So when I hear about all this pressure that all these professional triathletes have, I'm like, well, I mean, that's what they chose. That's kind of like their problem and their choice. And if they don't want to do it anymore, they don't have to.
There one example where I felt pressure and almost like a momentum to join the boys club, and this is a long time ago. This is so in 1995, 94, 93 through 96 or so. I've always been into lifting because I lifted because of sports growing up in high school and then
Uh-huh.
college. And then post college, I continued lifting. And I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'11" at best. And I've had a very stocky, big legs, broad shoulders, big legs because of soccer and some football things and lifting. And so I started getting into lifting and bodybuilding. And again, I'm not going to get huge, but I can get ripped. And I got very, very ripped in the 1994, 95 times. And so I'm before I finished college, I'm in college, not doing any more college sports anymore. I'm post college sports. So I played some football and soccer in college, and then trying to get my degree and working at a gym. I worked at a gym and I worked out at the gym at the same time, and being around the muscle heads. Because of that, there was a professional bodybuilder, a couple of them at our gym, and it was tempting to get in this circle, this group of guys who was lifting and it looked cool and bodybuilding was on the rise. At least it was in my world of being around it. And it was so close. I was inquiring about steroids back then. I was inquiring, and I was so close to wanting to do that, but I was a poor college student, so it really wasn't feasible. Knowing that I'm not going to school, I'm working, you know, minimum wage at a gym, just basically doing nothing, and it's like, oh boy, this seems so cool, being in the environment because I'm around it all the time.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
there's one other buddy of mine. We were thinking about it, and I think my buddy was just more of like along for the ride. I'm not sure if he would have done it if I would have got involved,
Uh-huh.
but I'm so glad I didn't. But it's my only example or only interaction with uh, being caught up in the circle of like everyone. These people are doing it. It's secretive. Back in mid '90s, it was secretive.
Yeah.
You had to know somebody to get these steroids or anything drug related. You had to be like hush hush or wink wink or whisper to somebody. Now I'm sure it's a lot probably more in the open, but I can see that. I can see where it becomes so your vision is so narrow. It's like me versus him. It's not the real world. It's me versus him or me versus him. Results or a little bit faster here. So the pressures and then I think the pressures of, oh, my sponsors say I have to do this race, and I create this pressure on myself
Mhm.
if I want to stay in this circle, in the nest of triathletes.
Well,
That's my take on that.
yeah, and you just reminded me, I remember watching a documentary and I read the book and I don't remember the name of it, but it was about a guy, he was a reporter and he was a cyclist. So he, as
Yes.
part of his story, purposefully took performance enhancing drugs. And he was the amateur cyclist that made his way up from, like a cat 4 to a cat 1 in cycling terms. And he documented and did a report about his experiences with it was a human growth hormone. And I was
Icarus was the
fascinated.
name of the documentary.
Yeah. What was it?
Icarus in 2017. I saw
Okay.
the same thing. It was, and he ended up getting involved with the guy who provided the doping, and he got involved in a big scandal with the Russians and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I was fascinated by the feeling that I'm like, gosh, someday when I'm not competing, I want to I want to experience that feeling of what it's like to recover just like that and to
Mm.
train hard or whatever you want to call it. It's all subjective. But that would I just kind of had this urge of I want that of feeling of what it feels like to be able to take a performance enhancing drug and to see the impact on. I think mainly it's a big recovery thing that allows you to train
Yeah.
at a certain level. And just to, kind of was like I would never do it. I've never done it, but I did have that feeling that I wanted to just get that feeling and just say, I'm not going to compete. I'm just going to do it within training and I won't do any
Uh,
competition. I just want to see what it does. So
yeah.
it's an interesting topic.
In his ability to go back, and I think he talked about like, I can go back and ride just as hard as I did yesterday, and I don't have to recover and wait 2 or 3 days.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying, I'll say it right now. When I got that, this is so strange. When I got that cold plunge and I was training last year for Ironman, that cold plunge, there was maybe 2 times, 3 times I was sore the next day. after cold plunging. So I'd work out, I'd train, I'd bike or run, I would cold plunge because of the inflammatory recovery aspects of cold water plunging. And I felt so great. This is what I imagine what it'd feel like to be able to get back in training. When I did that cold plunge daily during training, I felt good the next day. I was ready to go the next day at a higher level than if I had not did cold water immersion. So if you want that, Wendy, I can help you save $150. You can get a cold plunge, and that will make you feel like you can get back at it. It was incredible. I still do it now, and I'm not training for. I was surprised on how awesome that was.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
It's not that it's the same as whatever the guy he was doing or the EPOs of the drug world, but there are ways. I mean, genetically, yes. There's the massage, there's the therapy, there's the sleep, there's ice plunging, all that stuff.
Oh, there's so many ways to enhance performance and enhance recovery. I think the number one topic is there's so many ways to enhance your recovery, which will enhance your performance. Because without recovery, you can't train at a certain level and you can't perform at a certain level. So it's all about doing what you can to promote more recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. To be as strong and prepared the next day, energized the next day, having everything strong again. Yeah. That's why you have to take so much time off between, like, if you're weightlifting, you have to take time for the muscles to build back together again, to repair after you tear them up. And you feel that for sure after a long, hard run. It's like, I got to take a break.
Yeah.
My legs are, smashed, just frayed. And that's where that cold water came into play. At least for me, it did. And then stupid swim killed off the whole race. Still mad about that. Still mad about that. Man. It was good though. Was it last week? I sent you a picture.
Yeah.
On my bike.
Yeah.
And I did it just like you said. I just went out for the enjoyment. I went for a half hour. Road bike is my tri bike. I don't think it's assembled 100%. So I got the road bike, went out there. halfway through, I realized I didn't bring a flat kit. It's like, but it was a beautiful day. The next day it rained like crazy, but just going out for a ride, it's like, oh, this is nice. Just feels nice and not to think about or worry about it. I kept on looking down. I didn't have my Garmin on my bike. I just didn't have any indicators of speed. I kept on looking down by habit. You know how you look down at habit? I kept looking down, like expecting to see my watts. And it's like, no, they're not there. Stop looking. And then yesterday, and I thought about you too, Wendy. Yesterday, I had to take out the garbage can. I took out the garbage. I actually brought it back. I brought the garbage can back, and I jogged out to the curb to get it. And I got a long driveway. It's literally 100 yards. I jogged out to it, brought back and going, I should just get my shoes on and go for a run right now. The kids are already at school. I should just go for a run. Got my shoes on, went for a 2-mile run. And I went with no headphones, nothing, just went out. I go, this is what Wendy's talking about. Just go out and enjoy the exercise. It was quiet. I think it was before 9 a.m. Just run and go. Just like, all right, I'm going to go. I don't look at the pace. Although when I got to the half-mile marker, which I was half-mile mark in over 5 minutes, like 5. I thought it was like 5. Yeah. I was 27. 27. Crap. I've never been a 10-minute plus minute per mile. Luckily, there's a hill on the way back, so I was able to get my pace back under 9 overall. But you have been proud that I went for a run with no music, no. I did have my Garmin watch on to keep the data because I want to keep the data to prove that I actually ran. But it was good.
That is fantastic.
Anyways, I was thinking about how pissed off I am that then this is the reminders, like, oh, I put all that time in for running last year, had a great pace, was running 15, 20 miles at a high level, and that stupid swim killed my whole day. I finished it, but it's still all that time.
All that time, and that's why it's important to enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. Because if you do all that time becomes a very positive aspect of your life instead of all that time for nothing. That's very negative. So when I hear people saying, when you do an Ironman, you're sacrificing some aspects of your life, I hate the word sacrifice because I don't want people to think that they're sacrificing anything. I want them to think, "Oh, I get to put in this time on my bike, on my run, on my swim." And it's easy for me to say that now because I can't do anything and I wish I could. And so until you experience not being able to do anything, not by your choice, I'm not choosing not to do anything right now. I got hurt. It becomes more important for me to express when you enjoy the process of training for a specific event, there's not really any sacrifice and there's not really all that time for nothing. It's all that time for me to experiment, to reach a certain fitness level, to do some things in training that I've never been able to do before. And unfortunately, it led to a performance that you didn't expect. And that's the negative part of it at all. But at the same time,
Mm.
look back on all the positives of what led to race day and then you'll get over it.
I may have given you this quote months ago. I was, through the, I haven't heard it for a long time, but I would hear it through the Instagram reels or something
Uh-huh.
along those lines where it says the difference between a professional and an amateur. An amateur does it until they get it right. A professional does it until they can't get it wrong. And that's kind
That's
of the
great.
feeling sometimes like,
Hmm.
I know I want to keep I know what to expect. Therefore, I have to have a reason to try to do it. In my work, when I play darts now, it's a soft tip darts. It's an electronic board that we play on. I'm getting to be at a certain level, but I need a reason to practice. I need a reason to put the time in. And it's like if I'm just throwing to throw, for example, on practicing darts, it's like I need a reason to try harder because I know I can do well, but if there's no one challenging me, it's like I know I'm already, I need someone to bounce off. And so with the Ironman, like I say, I'm still pissed off about it. Is that to do it again? There's need to be a certain level that I need to reach for it to feel successful because I've done it for so many times, or I've done training so many times. What the 80% of the training is like, I've done this. There's no surprises here. I want the surprises, and those surprises are fewer the longer you've done this. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I know what this feels like. I have to go in and put all this time in before I get to the euphoria feeling,
Yeah.
the flow state. Like it does when I would ride or run and go, this feels easy. Oh, how can I hang on to that feeling?
Yeah.
Or when I'm the last 6 miles of the Ironman, I'm going, oh, I haven't been to this point before. Let me soak in this, whether it's the discomfort, this pain. It's very rare to get to this level of fatigue and to push through it.
Hmm.
I've never been past 22 because I've never had to in training. It's not part of my training. Oh, I'm past 22 now. Oh, this is what this feels like. Oh, I gotta hold this as much as possible. Those are the unknowns that I'm looking for. It takes forever to get there, though, unfortunately, right?
Right.
Because you've been there down this road before. I've put in 12 hours a week or 15 hours a week for 10, 12 weeks. Okay, I know what that feels like. Well, I just wanted to bring up this topic, and I had a feeling where it might go, and then it went to a couple different areas. But coming from us as a listener, coming from us, I think we have some perspective, and we've been around a lot of people, high level and amateur alike, to say, okay, I understand what the sport is. I understand more about this than most people do. I can see the pitfalls. I can see the motivations, and this is part of our take and latest example of a professional that admitted it, and he's not the first to admit it, not the first who's to do it, and there will be more. And that's just the nature of sport, and that's the nature of this sport, I think.
It's definitely the nature of sport. And I'd just be interested in seeing like a beginner triathlete in our case, what their opinion would be if they're even like, oh my God, I just started the sport. I have no knowledge or education about performance enhancements. People may not know about anything about it. So again, if people have comments about it, I'd be interested. They could leave the comment below the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, or they can join our T2 Endurance group. And that's kind of where we chat more about this kind of thing.
Yeah, good call. Well, with that, let's wrap this up. We didn't get to those questions, but we have those questions over for next week. But if you do have any questions you can add to the podcast, we'll certainly add to the list and we'll get to them. So for those like Chris, Matt, Karen, Scott, Katie, Patrick, and Julie, your questions are there. They will be answered in an upcoming podcast. For Coach Wendy, I'm Dave Erickson. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week of training, racing, or recovery. Most importantly, recovery. We'll see you next time. Adios.
Adios.